Welcome to the Really Good Films podcast, where we look back at the films we've covered recently, but also look forward to what movies are coming to cinemas and streaming soon. Firstly, we'll look at the original review of each film, followed by extra commentary. Don't worry about spoilers, as this podcast is spoiler-free. The films we've covered recently have all had different approaches to action-filled stories, from tailored faux killers in Hitman, to a pair of assassins named after fruit in Bullet Train, to the big set pieces of Extraction 2, and last but not least, Godzilla Minus One, which layers drama on top of its action. Now we know what's coming up, let's look at the original review of Hitman. Hitman sees Gary, who pretends to be a hitman for the police, fall in love with a potential client. Hitman is an enjoyable film. Glenn Powell and Adria Arjona both shine in their roles. There is a great deal of fun to be had from Powell playing multiple eccentric hitmen. However, these personas are essentially padding, and that is where the film's major issue lies: yo-yo pacing, sometimes too slow, sometimes too fast. Its ending also struggles to conclude the story, with it feeling a bit rushed. But, all in all, Hitman is worth a watch. Here's a few thoughts that we couldn't fit into our lightning review. I really wanted to love Hitman, but it feels like Linklater light rather than the director's best work. Don't get me wrong, it's better than many comedies I've seen, but his style feels somewhat restrained here. Overall, the film isn't quite as interesting or as original as the quirky personas in the trailer suggest. I would also say Powell is more convincing when playing a suave hitman than a socially awkward teacher, but his performance does lessen this mismatch to an extent. Hitman is a solid comedy with good performances. Nothing more, nothing less. Our next film is also comedic in tone. Let's recap the initial review of Bullet Train. Bullet Train sees assassins on a moving bullet train find out their assignments have something in common. Bullet Train's premise promises a non-stop action film filled with quirky characters, and while it achieves this to a certain extent, it's an uneven effort. If you've seen the trailer, you'll have guessed the best part of the movie, the comedic duo Lemon and Tangerine. They are consistently the funniest and most enjoyable part of the film, despite an overused analogy in their exchanges. As a film, Bullet Train is an enjoyable ride, with messy storytelling that's worth a watch once, but only once. In terms of additional commentary on Bullet Train, I would say that it feels like a cartoon for adults. And while the humour mostly lands, it still fails far too frequently. Attempts to be hip feel decidedly stale, but luckily, due to the film's frenetic nature, they don't last too long. Bullet Train also features unnecessary appearances from well-known faces, which feel like an additional unfunny joke about the state of filmmaking today. There's also excessive product placement, most notably the bottled water brand Fiji. Bullet Train is not a bad film, but I can't help but feel its premise has been a bit wasted. While it's mostly a fun ride, don't expect to remember much of it after the credits roll. Now it's time for Extraction 2. Let's look at our speedy review. Extraction 2 follows mercenary Tyler Rake as he embarks on another mission, and this time the stakes are even higher. The first Extraction film was just okay, but luckily the sequel steps up its game. Extraction 2's high-octane action scenes are backed up by strong character motivation. The audience are also given time between the action to absorb what they've just seen, allowing for greater appreciation of the film's impressive fight choreography. This entry makes me excited for the future adventures of Tyler Rake, and so Extraction 2 is worth a watch. Since I mentioned the special effects in my review of the first Extraction film, it's worth touching on the sequel's VFX here in my extra thoughts. I'm happy to say Extraction 2's special effects are a marked improvement over the first film. I hope the broader quality improvements seen here make the next instalment, reportedly greenlit by Netflix, even better. I will say that it's sad that these sort of action films don't get a theatrical release. This is the kind of movie I'd like to see in the cinema, as watching it on a TV or even worse a phone, means its bombastic action scenes have far less impact. If my review has got you interested in Extraction 2, do yourself a favour and watch it on the biggest screen available. Godzilla Minus One is our final film for this episode. Let's look at my initial thoughts on the film. Godzilla Minus One sees post-war Japan face a new crisis, a giant monster, baptised in the wake of the atomic bomb. This is a very impressive film on multiple fronts. Firstly, its monster, which is extremely powerful, but not to the point where humans lose their significance or it becomes cartoony. And secondly, the human drama at the centre of its story, which is filled with many likeable characters. Also refreshingly, our lead is allowed to show doubt and fear in a way that many movie heroes are not. Godzilla Minus One has emotional weight to match its action, and is therefore worth a watch. We've got to discuss the film's Oscar-winning special effects in our additional commentary, as this feature reportedly cost less than $15 million to make, which is frankly amazing. I've seen films with 20 times that budget with less convincing effects. So, well done to those who worked on Godzilla Minus One's VFX. I cannot praise you highly enough. The film's cast are also universally excellent. They make the situation of a giant monster invading Japan believable, which is no small task. For someone who's not naturally drawn to giant monster movies, this one impressed me so much I may seek out more. Now that you're all caught up on the recent Really Good Films reviews, let's sample what's coming soon to streaming and cinemas. On September 20th, we get The Substance, a horror film about our youth-obsessed culture that looks like it packs a serious punch. It follows an aging starlet who is offered a substance which will allow her to be temporarily reborn as an attractive 20-something. But a time balance must be maintained between these two existences, or there may be consequences. The film stars Demi Moore, Dennis Quaid and Margaret Qualley, and won the Best Screenplay Award at this year's Cannes Film Festival. On the same day, we get Wolves, starring Brad Pitt and George Clooney. It sees two fixers assigned the same job be forced to team up. I don't need to tell you that Pitt and Clooney are great on screen together, and this film seems to make full use of that, infusing this comedic crime thriller with plenty of humour that relies on their palpable chemistry. I'm excited to see the movie, and hope that it lives up to its trailer, which hopefully hasn't shown all the best bits. On the 27th of September, we get Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, a timely film about building a better future when it seems like there's not one in sight. It focuses on the conflict between an artist in favour of a utopian future and the greedy mayor of New Rome. I am sure this film is eagerly anticipated by many due to its writer-director. Its star-studded cast and impressive visuals mean this is a film which demands to be seen on a large screen. Well, that's it for this episode of the Really Good Films podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want more from Really Good Films, don't forget to follow us on social media. And of course, subscribe to the podcast too, wherever you get your podcasts. We can't wait to review more films for you soon.